The Valkyrie Empire had ruled the stars for 300 years. They had conquered 17 star systems. They had crushed dozens of species under their boots. Their warships darkened the skies of 100 worlds. And their emperor, High Lord Torvan, sat upon a throne made from the bones of fallen kings. No one challenged the Valkyrie. No one dared. When their scout ships found the small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy, they thought it would be easy. The planet was called Earth. The creatures living on it called themselves humans. The Valkyrie watched them from orbit for several weeks, studying them, learning their weaknesses. And there were many weaknesses to learn. Humans were soft. They had no claws, no fangs, no natural armor. They could not survive in extreme heat or cold. They needed to eat and drink constantly. They slept for a third of their lives. And most importantly, they died quickly. The average human lived for less than 100 years. To the Valkyrie, who lived for 5 centuries, humans were like insects. They were born, they buzzed around for a brief moment, and then they were gone. The Valkyrie also saw that humans were divided. They had hundreds of nations on their single planet. They fought wars among themselves. They argued over land and resources and ideas. They could not even agree on simple things like how to measure distance or what side of the road to drive on. Commander Drask, the leader of the Valkyrie scout fleet, sent his report to High Lord Torvan with confidence. "This species will fall in days," he wrote. "They are weak, divided, and short-lived. They pose no threat to the Empire." Torvan was pleased. He ordered the invasion fleet to prepare. But before the attack could begin, a message came from the humans. They wanted to talk. They wanted to send a representative to meet with the Valkyrie. Delegation at the Galactic Council Station. Torvan laughed when he heard this. He thought it was amusing that such a weak species wanted to negotiate. But he agreed to the meeting. He wanted to see these humans up close. He wanted to look into their eyes before he crushed them. The Galactic Council Station floated in neutral space. Far from any empire's territory, it was a place where species could meet and talk without fear of attack. Dozens of alien races gathered there, watching as the human ship arrived. The ship was small and simple. It had no weapons that anyone could see. It docked quietly, and a single human walked out. Her name was Yuna. She was not tall. She was not muscular. Her hair was dark with streaks of silver, and her face showed the lines of age. She wore simple clothes, nothing fancy or impressive. She walked slowly, calmly, as if she had all the time in the world. The Valkyrie delegation towered over her. Commander Drask stood at the front, his scales gleaming under the station lights. He was twice her height and 10 times her weight. His teeth were sharp enough to tear through metal. His claws could crush stone. He looked down at the human woman and smiled. "This is what Earth sends to represent them," he said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "A fragile old female. Your species insults us with your weakness." Yuna did not react to his words. She simply looked up at him with calm, steady eyes. "I am Ambassador Yuna," she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "I speak for the United Earth government. I have come to deliver a message." Drask crossed his massive arms. "Then deliver it quickly. We have a war to prepare." The other alien species in the council chamber watched in silence. Many of them had seen the Valkyrie conquer worlds before. They knew what was coming for Earth. Some felt pity for the humans. Others simply waited to see what would happen. Yuna took a slow breath. When she spoke, her voice carried through the entire chamber. "The people of Earth do not wish for war," she said. "We are a peaceful species. We prefer trade and friendship to conflict. We have much to offer the galaxy, and we hope to learn much in return." Drask laughed. Several other Valkyrie joined him. "Peaceful," Drask repeated. "Our scouts watched your planet for weeks. We saw your nations building weapons. We saw your soldiers training for combat. We saw your history filled with blood and death. You are not peaceful. You are simply weak." Yuna nodded slowly. "It is true that we have fought many wars among ourselves. Our history is filled with violence. But that is precisely why I must warn you." The laughter stopped. Drask leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Warn us? He growled. You dare to warn the Velkari Empire? Yes, Yuna said simply. I must warn you not to threaten humanity. I must warn you not to attack our world. Because if you do, you will awaken something that you do not understand. Something that has been sleeping inside us since the first human opened their eyes. Drask stared at her for a long moment. Then he burst into laughter again, louder than before. Listen to this creature. He shouted to the council. She threatens us. A species that lives for barely 100 cycles thinks it can frighten the Velkari. He stepped closer to Yuna, looming over her like a mountain over a pebble. What could you possibly do to us? He demanded. What secret weapon does your dying species possess? Yuna did not step back. She did not flinch. She simply looked up into his eyes and spoke in a voice as calm as still water. We are already hunting something, she said. We have been hunting it since the beginning of our existence. Every human who has ever lived has joined this hunt. Every generation passes it to the next. We do not stop. We do not tire. We do not forget. Drask snorted. And what are you hunting, little human? Yuna's eyes seemed to grow darker, deeper, older than her years. Death itself, she whispered. We have been chasing death across the ages, trying to catch it, trying to defeat it. That is why we live such short lives. We burn so bright because we are always running, always fighting, always refusing to accept the end. She paused. If you attack Earth, you will not be our enemy. You will simply become part of our hunt. And I promise you, Commander, the Velkari Empire has never faced a predator like humanity. The chamber was silent. Drask stared at her for a long moment. Then he threw back his head and laughed once more. Pretty words, he said, but words will not save your world. He turned and walked away, his delegation following behind him. Yuna watched them go. Her face showed no fear, no anger, no sadness. Only patience. 3 days later, the Velkari invasion fleet entered Earth's solar system, and the hunt began. The attack came without warning. On a quiet Tuesday morning, 12,000 Velkari. Warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. They came in waves, spreading across the darkness like a plague of metal locusts. Their weapons were charged. Their soldiers were ready. Their commanders expected an easy victory. The first targets were the outer colonies. Mars Station 7, the lunar mining facilities, the research outpost on Europa. The Velkari did not send demands or warnings. They simply opened fire. Minho was eating breakfast with his wife. Youngji, when the first missiles hit Mars Station 7, he was a simple engineer. 42 years old, with gray starting to show in his hair. He had worked on the station for 15 years. He had helped build the water recycling system. He had fixed countless machines and pipes and circuits. It was not exciting work, but it was honest work, and he was proud of it. The explosion threw him across the room. The ceiling collapsed. Fire and smoke filled the air. He could hear screaming, crying, the terrible sound of metal tearing apart. Unji, he shouted into the chaos. Yunji, where are you? He found her buried under fallen beams. She was still breathing, but barely. Blood covered her face. Her eyes were closed. Hold on, he whispered, pulling at the debris. Hold on, I will get you out. But the station was dying around them. The air was escaping into space. The temperature was dropping. Minho knew they had only minutes left. He held his wife's hand as the cold crept in. He told her he loved her. He told her about the life they were supposed to have, the children they had planned for, small house on Earth they were saving to buy. She never opened her eyes again. Minho was one of the lucky ones. The rescue ships found him 3 hours later, frozen but alive. They brought him back from the edge of death with machines and medicine. When he woke up in the hospital on Earth, they told him what had happened. 42,000 people had died in the first wave of attacks. Civilians, workers, families, children. The Velkari had shown no mercy. Minho lay in his hospital bed and stared at the ceiling. Something changed inside him that day. Something broke, and something else woke up in its place. Something old and cold, impatient. He was not alone. Across Earth and its remaining colonies, millions of humans felt the same thing. Grief turned to anger. Anger turned to something deeper, something harder. A fire that would not go out. Admiral Taiho stood on the bridge of the Eternal Pursuit, humanity's largest warship. He was 63 years old, with a face like weathered stone and eyes that had seen too much death. He had lost his wife to cancer 10 years ago. He had lost both his sons in a shuttle accident 5 years after that. He had thought about retiring many times, but he had never done it. Now he understood why. "Status report," he said quietly. Lieutenant Jiwoo stood beside him, her hands trembling slightly as she read from her screen. She was young, only 24, with sharp eyes and a quick mind. She had graduated top of her class at the military academy. She had never seen real combat before today. "Sir, we have confirmed 42,000 casualties. Mars Station 7 is completely destroyed. The lunar facilities are heavily damaged. The enemy fleet is regrouping near Jupiter." Taiho nodded slowly. His face showed no expression, but inside, something was burning. "Have we received any communication from the Valkyrie?" "Yes, sir. They are demanding our complete surrender. They say if we refuse, they will destroy Earth." The bridge was silent. Every officer, every technician, every crew member waited for the Admiral's response. Taiho walked to the main viewing window and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 12,000 enemy ships were waiting. They were bigger, stronger, more advanced. By every measure, humanity should have no chance. But Taiho knew something. The Valkyrie did not understand. Humans had spent their entire existence fighting things bigger and stronger than themselves. They had hunted mammoths with wooden spears. They had tamed wolves and horses and elephants. They had conquered mountains and oceans and the sky itself. And when they ran out of things to fight on Earth, they had reached for the stars. Humanity was not a species that surrendered. "Open a channel to all human vessels," Taiho said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Every ship, every station, every colony, I want everyone to hear this." Ji-Woo's fingers flew across her console. "Channel open, sir." Taiho took a deep breath. "What?" "This is Admiral Taiho of the United Earth Fleet. Today, we were attacked without warning. Today, 42,000 of our brothers and sisters were murdered by an enemy that thought we were weak. An enemy that thought we would be easy prey." He paused, letting his words sink in across the solar system. They were wrong. His voice grew harder, colder. "The Valkyrie think they know what humans are. They see our short lives and call us weak. They see our small bodies and call us fragile. They see our divisions and call us broken. But they do not understand us. They do not know what sleeps inside every human heart." He turned to face the bridge crew. Every eye was on him. "We are hunters. We have always been hunters. On the ancient plains of Earth, our ancestors chased prey for days without rest. They did not need to be faster or stronger. They simply needed to never stop. They ran until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. They ran until they won." His eyes blazed. "Today, we begin a new hunt. The Valkyrie have made themselves our prey. And I swear to you on the memory of everyone we have lost, we will not stop until this hunt is finished." He nodded to Jiwoo. "Activate Protocol Prometheus." Jiwoo hesitated for just a moment. Protocol Prometheus was the last resort, the final option. It meant total war. It meant no surrender, no retreat, no negotiation. It meant hunting the enemy to the end of the galaxy if necessary. She activated it across the solar system. On every human ship and station and colony, a message appeared on every screen. 3 simple words in bold letters: "The hunt begins." On Earth, Minho saw the message from his hospital bed. He pulled out the tubes connecting him to the medical machines. He stood up on shaking legs. A nurse rushed to stop him. "Sir, you need a rest. Your body is still recovering." Minho looked at her with eyes that had died and come back to life. "Where do I sign up?" he asked. The nurse looked at him for a long moment. Then She pointed down the hall. Recruitment office. Third door, on the left. Minho walked out of the hospital and into the war. He was not alone. Across Earth and its colonies, millions of humans made the same choice. Scientists and farmers, teachers and builders, old and young, rich and poor. They came from every nation, every background, every walk of life. They came because 42,000 of their people had been murdered. They came because something ancient had woken up inside them. They came because the hunt had begun. For centuries, humans had hidden their true nature from the galaxy. They had smiled at other species. They had traded peacefully. They had pretended to be a young, naive race, still learning its place among the stars. They had let others believe they were harmless. It was the perfect disguise. The truth was something far more dangerous, Captain. Sujin understood this truth better than most. She was 31 years old, small and lean, with short black hair and eyes that never seemed to blink. Before the war, she had been a cargo ship pilot, moving supplies between Earth and the outer colonies. It was boring work, but it paid well, and she got to see the stars. Her younger brother Doan had worked on Luna Station. He was 26, always laughing, always making jokes. He had called her every week without fail, telling her about his life, asking about hers. He had been saving money to visit Earth for her birthday. He died in the first attack. Sujin did not cry when she heard the news. She did not scream or break things. She simply sat in silence for a long time, feeling something cold and patient settle into her bones. Then she walked to the recruitment office and asked for a warship. They gave her a small corvette called the Undying. It was fast but lightly armed, meant for scouting and harassment rather than direct combat. Most captains would have considered it a death sentence against the massive Valkyrie. Cruisers. Su Jin considered it perfect. Her first target was a Valkyrie cruiser called the Iron Fist. It was 10 times the size of her ship, with weapons that could destroy a small moon. Its captain was a veteran named Korath, who had conquered 6 worlds for the Empire. Sujin found the Iron Fist near the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. She attacked quickly, hitting its engines with precision strikes. Before disappearing into the asteroid field, the damage was not enough to destroy the cruiser, but it was enough to slow it down. Korath was furious. He ordered his ship to chase the tiny human vessel into the asteroids. He expected to catch it within hours. He was wrong. Sujin led him through the asteroid field for 3 days. She never slept. She barely ate. She used every trick she knew, hiding behind rocks, using the cruiser's own sensor shadows against it, attacking when they least expected and vanishing before they could respond. The Valkyrie crew grew tired. They were used to quick victories, overwhelming force, enemies who broke and ran. They did not know how to fight someone who simply refused to stop. On the 3rd day, Korath made a mistake. He pushed his ship too hard, trying to corner the Undying near a cluster of large asteroids. His engines, already damaged, finally gave out completely. The Iron Fist drifted helplessly in space. Sujin brought her ship alongside the crippled cruiser. Her weapons were almost empty. Her fuel was nearly gone. She had not slept in 72 hours. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion and stimulant pills. But she was still hunting. Korath's face appeared on her view screen. He looked exhausted, confused, almost afraid. "Human," he said. "You have one. We surrender. Please accept our surrender." Sujin stared at him for a long moment. "You killed my brother," she said quietly. His name was Dawan. He was 26 years old. He liked to make people laugh. "He wanted to visit Earth for my birthday." Korath blinked. "I do not know who." "Of course you do not know," Sujin interrupted. "He was just one of 42,000. Just another number to you. Just another insect to crush." She leaned forward, her eyes burning with something ancient and terrible. "But to me, he was everything. And now, I am going to show you what humans do when you take everything from them." She did not accept the surrender. The story of Captain Sujin spread quickly through the human fleet. Other captains began using the same tactics. They called it persistence hunting, named after the way ancient humans had hunted on Earth. The technique was simple but devastating. Ancient humans had no claws, no fangs, no great speed. But they had something no other predator on Earth possessed: the ability to keep going. They could run for hours, days, if necessary. They sweated to cool their bodies while their prey overheated. They tracked wounded animals across vast distances, never losing the trail, never giving up. Eventually, the prey would collapse from exhaustion, and the hunters would be there, patient and relentless, ready to finish what they had started. Now humanity applied this ancient wisdom to war among the stars. They did not try to match the Valkyrie in direct combat. They knew they could not win that way, not yet. Instead, they harassed and retreated, attacked and vanished, wore down their enemies one small wound at a time, and they never stopped. Engineer Minho, recovered from his injuries, joined a sabotage team that infiltrated Valkyrie supply lines. He did not sleep much anymore. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Yunji's face. So he kept moving, kept working, kept fighting. His team destroyed 17 supply ships in 2 months. They planted bombs in fuel depots. They hacked communication systems. They turned the Valkyrie's own technology against them. Lieutenant Jiwoo, who had once trembled at the thought of combat, became one of the most feared tactical officers in the fleet. She developed new strategies based on persistence hunting principles. She taught other officers how to think like ancient hunters, how to track and wound and wait. The key is patience, she told her students. The Valkyrie are used to quick victories. They do not know how to fight a war that lasts. But we do. We have been fighting the longest war in history since our species began. What war is that? A young officer asked. Jiwoo smiled grimly. The war against death, she said. Every human who has ever lived has fought that war. Every doctor, every scientist, every parent watching over a sick child. We have been trying to defeat death for 1,000,000 years. That is why we are so stubborn. That is why we never give up. She looked at the stars through the viewport. Valkyrie think they can frighten us with death. They do not understand. We are not afraid of death. We are angry at it. And now we are angry at them. Across the solar system and beyond, the hunt continued. The Valkyrie began to notice something strange. Their losses were small at first, barely worth mentioning. A supply ship here, a scout vessel there. Nothing that should have concerned a mighty empire. But the losses did not stop. Every day, more ships were damaged or destroyed. Every week, more soldiers died in ambushes they never saw coming. Every month, the human fleet grew stronger, while the Valkyrie fleet grew weaker. And worst of all, the humans seemed to be everywhere. They attacked from asteroid fields and nebulae. They struck at dawn and midnight. They appeared from nowhere and vanished like ghosts. Commander Drask, who had laughed at Ambassador Yuna's warning, stopped laughing. He began to have nightmares. In his dreams, he was running through endless darkness. Something was chasing him, something he could not see. He ran faster and faster, but the thing behind him never fell behind. It never tired. It never stopped. He woke up screaming, and somewhere in the void of space, Captain Sujin guided her ship toward another target. She had not slept in days. Her body was exhausted beyond measure. But her eyes were still open, still watching, still hunting. She thought about Dowan. She thought about his laugh, his smile, the way he always made everything seem brighter. I am still hunting, she whispered to the stars. I will not stop. I will never stop. The hunt continued. 6 months into the war, the Valkyrie Empire began to crack. It did not happen suddenly. There was no single battle that broke them, no decisive moment that turned the tide. Instead, it was like water wearing away stone. Slow, steady, and impossible to stop. High Lord Torvin sat alone in his throne room, staring at reports that grew worse every day. His advisors had stopped coming with good news. There was no good news anymore. The human fleet had doubled in size since the war began. Every ship they lost was replaced by 2 more. Every soldier who fell was mourned and then avenged by 10 volunteers who burned with the same cold fire. Torvin had expected the humans to break after the first attack. Every other species had broken. The Valkyrie method was simple and effective. Strike hard, strike fast, spread fear and chaos, and watch your enemies crumble. But the humans did not crumble. They did not beg for peace. They did not offer surrender. They did not even seem to understand that they were supposed to be afraid. Instead, they got angry. And their anger was unlike anything Torvin had ever seen. It was not hot rage that burned itself out quickly. It was something colder, deeper, more patient. It was the anger of a species that had spent its entire existence fighting against impossible odds. It was the anger of hunters who had chased death itself across the ages, and it was aimed directly at the Valkyrie Empire. Torvin summoned his chief scientist, an elderly Valkyrie named Sareth. Sareth was old, even by Valkyrie standards, over 400 years old, with scales that had faded to dull gray. He had studied dozens of species over his long life. He had helped the Empire understand and defeat countless enemies. "Tell me about the humans," Torvin demanded. "Tell me what we are really fighting." Zroth was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated a holographic display, filling the throne room with images from human history. "The humans evolved on a planet they call Earth," he began. "It is a death world." Torvin frowned. "Death world." "Yes, my lord. A planet where almost everything is trying to kill you. Extreme temperatures, violent weather, predators of every size and shape, diseases that can wipe out entire populations, earthquakes, volcanoes, floods. The planet itself seems designed to destroy life." The hologram showed ancient humans, small and fragile, surrounded by massive predators with teeth and claws. By all logic, the humans should have gone extinct millions of years ago. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no great strength or speed. They were soft, weak, easy prey. Sareth paused, his old eyes growing dark. But they survived. Not just survived. They conquered. They defeated every predator on their world. They tamed the most dangerous animals. They spread across every corner of their planet, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. They adapted to everything. How? Torvin asked. Sareth pulled up more images. Ancient humans running across vast plains, chasing animals that were faster and stronger than them. Resistance hunting, he said. The humans developed a hunting method unlike any other species in the galaxy. They would wound their prey and then chase it. Not quickly. They could not match the speed of their prey, but they could keep going. Hour after hour, day after day. They would run until their prey collapsed from exhaustion, from overheating, from wounds that slowly drained its strength. He looked at Torvin. They did not need to be faster. They did not need to be stronger. They simply needed to never stop. Torvin felt a chill run down his spine. It was not a feeling he was used to. But that was millions of years ago, he said. They are civilized now. They have technology, cities, art. Yes, Sareth agreed. And yet the hunting instinct never left them. It is written into their very blood. Every cell of their bodies carries the memory of those ancient hunts. And more importantly, he pulled up more images. Human scientists working in laboratories, doctors treating patients, engineers building machines. They found a new prey to hunt. A prey. Sareth met his emperor's eyes. Death itself, my lord. The humans are obsessed with defeating death. Every generation has fought against it. They built medicine to cure diseases that should have killed them. They built machines to extend their lives. They study aging like an enemy to be conquered. They refuse to accept that anything is impossible. He turned off the hologram. When we attacked them, we did not just start a war. We became part of their hunt. We became something standing between them and survival. And now they will chase us the way their ancestors chased prey across the ancient plains. Torvin stood up from his throne. His legs felt weak. But we are the Valkyrie Empire, he said. We have conquered 17 star systems. We have crushed dozens of species. Yes, Sareth said quietly, but those species fought to survive. The humans do not fight to survive. They fight because fighting is what they are. They cannot stop. They do not know how to stop. Giving up is not in their nature. He bowed his head. I have studied them for months now, my lord. Their history, their stories, their beliefs, and I have reached a terrible conclusion. What conclusion? Sareth looked up, and for the first time in his long life, Torvin saw fear in his old scientist's eyes. We cannot beat them. We can kill millions of them, and they will keep coming. We can destroy their ships, and they will build more. We can burn their worlds, and they will crawl out of the ashes and continue the hunt. They have been doing this for 1,000,000 years. They are very, very good at it. Torvin slammed his fist against his throne. Then what do you suggest? That we surrender. I suggest that we run, Sareth said. I suggest that we abandon this war and retreat to our home systems. I suggest that we pray they do not follow. The Valkyrie do not run. Then the Valkyrie will die. The throne room fell silent. Torvin wanted to argue. He wanted to reject Sarath's words as the ramblings of a frightened old man. But deep in his hearts, he knew the truth. The humans were not stopping. Every day they pushed deeper into Valkyrie space. Every week, they took back territory that the Empire had held for decades. Every month, the balance of power shifted further in their favor, and they were not slowing down. Reports came in from across the Empire. Valkyrie soldiers were deserting their posts. Commanders were refusing orders to attack human targets. Entire colonies were negotiating secret surrenders with the advancing human fleet. The fear was spreading. Torvin remembered Commander Drask's reports from the beginning of the war. He had described the humans as insects, easily crushed. But insects did not fight back. Insects did not chase you across the stars. Insects did not look at death and say no. What are they? Torvin whispered, more to himself than to Sareth. The old scientist answered anyway. They are the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever seen, he said. Not because they are strong, not because they are fast, not because they have advanced technology, but because they have something no other species has ever developed. What? Sarath's voice dropped to a whisper. The absolute refusal to accept defeat. The certainty that no matter how long it takes, no matter how much it costs, they will eventually win. Other species fight until the odds are against them, and then they surrender. Humans fight until they win, or until every last one of them is dead. And even then, I am not sure they would stop. Torvin sat back on his throne. He suddenly felt very old, very tired. What have we done? He murmured. You did not listen to the warning, Sareth said softly. The human ambassador tried to tell you. She tried to explain what you were awakening. But you laughed at her. Torvin remembered Ambassador Yuna's calm eyes, her quiet voice, her words about hunting death. He had thought she was bluffing. He had been wrong. Is there any hope? He asked. Sareth was quiet for a long moment. Perhaps, he finally said, if we surrender completely, if we offer them everything they want, if we give them justice for what we did, perhaps they will accept. Perhaps the hunt will end. And if they do not accept, Sareth did not answer. He did not need to. Outside the throne room, the stars burned cold and distant. And somewhere among them, the human fleet was moving closer. The hunt continued. The war ended on a quiet morning. There was no great battle. No final confrontation between massive fleets. No explosion of fire and death that shook the stars. The Valkyrie Empire simply stopped fighting. One by one, their ships powered down their weapons. One by one, their commanders sent messages of surrender. One by one. Their colonies opened their doors to the advancing human forces. High Lord Torvin watched from his throne room as reports came in from across the Empire. His fleet was gone, destroyed or captured over months of endless hunting. His armies had melted away, soldiers deserting or refusing to fight. His allies had abandoned him, making secret deals with the humans to save themselves. 300 years of conquest, 17 star systems, dozens of conquered species, All of it was crumbling. The human fleet arrived at the Valkyrie homeworld on the first day of their spring season. 10,000 ships, from massive carriers to tiny corvettes, spread across the sky like a metal storm. They did not fire. They did not need to. They had already won. Admiral Taiho stood on the bridge of the Eternal Pursuit, watching the Valkyrie capital city on his view screen. It was a beautiful city, he admitted to himself. Tall towers of crystal and stone, gardens that stretched for miles, monuments celebrating centuries of victory. Soon, it would belong to someone else, sir, Lieutenant Jiwoo said quietly. The Valkyrie have opened their planetary shields. They are requesting terms of surrender. Taiho nodded slowly. It was tired. 18 months of war had aged him more than the previous 20 years combined. His hair was completely white now. His hands shook slightly when he was not paying attention. His eyes had seen too much death, but he was still standing. "Prepare the landing forces," he said. "We are going down." The human soldiers walked through the streets of the Valkyrie capital in perfect order. They did not rampage or loot. They did not attack civilians. They simply moved through the city like water flowing through cracks, steady and unstoppable. The Valkyrie watched from their windows. They had expected monsters. They had expected savage beasts who would tear their world apart in revenge. Instead, they saw tired men and women in worn uniforms, walking calmly toward the palace. They saw discipline and order. They saw determination that had not faded despite 18 months of brutal war. They saw hunters who had finally caught their prey. "Hi." Lord Torvon was waiting in his throne room when the humans arrived. He had considered running. He had considered fighting to the death. He had considered 100 different options. In the end, he simply waited. There was nowhere left to run. There was no point in fighting. The hunt was over. The door opened, and a single human walked in. Torvin recognized her immediately. Ambassador Yuna. The small woman with silver-streaked hair who had warned him in the Galactic Council chamber so long ago. She looked older now. The war had carved lines into her face that had not been there before. Her eyes were heavier, sadder, filled with memories of everything she had witnessed. But her voice was the same. Calm, quiet, patient. "Hi, Lord Torvin," she said. "We meet again." Torvin stared at her. He had faced countless enemies in his long life. He had conquered worlds and crushed armies, but he had never felt as small as he did at this moment, looking at this tiny human woman who had warned him of exactly what would happen. "You should have listened," Yuna said simply. Torvon tried to speak. His voice came out as a whisper. "What are you?" Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she walked closer, her footsteps echoing in the empty throne room. "We are the species that looked at death and refused to accept it," she said. "For 1,000,000 years, we have been chasing the impossible. We have cured diseases that should have killed us. We have built machines that let us fly among the stars. We have extended our lives far beyond what nature intended." She stopped in front of his throne, looking up at him without fear. "We are hunters, Torven, not because we enjoy killing, but because we refuse to give up. We refuse to accept defeat. We refuse to stop fighting, no matter how long it takes, no matter how much it costs." She shook her head slowly. "You killed 42,000 of our people in your first attack. You thought that would break us? You thought we would surrender, beg for mercy, crumble like every other species you conquered?" Her eyes grew cold. "All you did was remind us what we were fighting for." Torvin looked at the floor. He could not meet her gaze. "What will you do to us?" he asked. Yuna was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. "That depends on you. We are not here for revenge. Revenge would mean becoming what we hate. We are here for justice. We are here too. Make sure what happened to our people never happens to anyone else." She turned and looked at the windows at the city beyond. "You will face trial for your crimes. Your military will be disbanded. Your weapons of mass destruction will be destroyed. You will pay reparations to every species you have harmed." She turned back to him. "And you will live with the knowledge of what you did. You will spend the rest of your long life knowing that you awakened something you did not understand, that it cost you everything." Torvin closed his eyes. In some ways, this was worse than death. Death would have been quick, merciful, final. This was slow, painful, eternal. Why? He whispered. Why did you not simply destroy us? We killed so many of your people, burned your stations and colonies. Why show mercy? Una smiled sadly. Because we are still fighting our true enemy. The enemy we have been hunting since the beginning, death itself. And if we become killers for the sake of killing, if we destroy for the sake of destruction, then death wins. We become its servants instead of its hunters. She walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back. We are humanity. We burn bright and die young. But every generation passes the hunt to the next. Every child is born knowing that time is the enemy and that we must run faster, reach further, fight harder. We do not fight because we hate. We fight because we love. We love life so much that we refuse to let it be taken from us. She opened the door. Remember that, Torvon. Remember that the species you tried to destroy did not destroy you in return. Maybe that will help you understand what you were really fighting against. She left. Torvin sat alone in his empty throne room for a long time. Captain Sujin was there for the final ceremony. She stood among thousands of other veterans watching. As the Velkar High Command formally surrendered to Admiral Taiho and Ambassador Yuna, she had not slept well in 18 months. She had pushed her body beyond all reasonable limits. She had lost count of how many enemy ships she had hunted through the darkness of space, but she had survived. And more importantly, she had kept her promise. She thought about Dewan, her little brother who had laughed at everything, who had called her every week, who had never gotten to visit Earth for her birthday. I finished the hunt, she whispered to the sky. I did not stop. I did not give up. I did not forget. Beside her, Engineer Minho stood in silence. He thought about Yunji, her smile, her voice. The way she had held his hand as the cold crept in. He had survived too. He was not sure if he was grateful for that yet. But he was alive. And as long as he was alive, he could keep building, keep working, keep fighting the way humans had always fought. Lieutenant Jiwoo stood at attention, her eyes fixed on the ceremony. She had grown so much in 18 months. The nervous young officer who had trembled at the thought of combat was gone. In her place stood a veteran, a hunter, someone who understood what humanity truly was. And behind them all, Admiral Taiho watched the sunset over the Velkari homeworld. He was tired beyond measure. He wanted nothing more than to rest, to sleep, to finally stop. But he knew the truth that every human knew in their bones. The hunt never really ended. There was always another enemy, always another challenge, always another impossible goal that humanity refused to accept was impossible. They had conquered death worlds. They had tamed predators, had walked on moons and reached for stars. They had fought the greatest empire the galaxy had ever seen and won. And tomorrow, they would wake up and start hunting again, because that was what humans did. That was what humans were. Ambassador Yuna stood beside Taiho as the ceremony ended. She looked at the stars coming out in the darkening sky. Do you think the galaxy understands now? Taiho asked quietly. Yuna considered the question. Some of them do, she said. The story will spread. Other species will learn what happened here. They will whisper warnings to each other in trade stations and diplomatic halls. She smiled slightly. Do not threaten the humans. The immortal hunt is true. They will chase you across stars and centuries, and they will never, ever stop. Taiho nodded slowly. And death? Asked. Our true enemy? Do you think we will ever catch it? Yuna looked at him with eyes that held the weight of 1,000,000 years of human struggle. I do not know, she said honestly, but I know we will never stop trying. Every generation will pick up the hunt from the last. Every child will be born knowing that time is the enemy. And one day, maybe, we will finally win. She looked at the stars. Till then, we keep running. We keep fighting. We keep hunting. Taiho smiled for the first time in months. That is what humans do. Yuna agreed softly. That is what we are. The sun set over the conquered world. The stars came out, cold and eternal. And somewhere among them, in ships and stations and colonies spread across the galaxy,